Okay, so I'm Kineret Hay-Gillor. I'm an Israeli independent documentary filmmaker. I've already directed, I think, 5 or 6 documentary films so far. Most of them related to struggle, um, but also with hope. So, yeah, it usually come together, I believe.
Mhm. Okay, well, thank you. So I will start out by asking, what prompted or inspired you to make the film Tattooed for Life? Obviously, the event that it is about is October 7th of 2023, but for you personally or as a filmmaker, what led you to make the film and what does it mean to you? Uh,
Um, so the inspiration came from the overwhelming emotion surrounding October 7th, of course. But honestly, at the beginning, I wasn't thinking I want to make a film about this. I was
mm,
shocked and overwhelmed, trying to uh, contribute in more practical and ways.
mm,
But I think it was about a week later, I found myself working on a news piece for a French production company. They asked me to locate and conduct an interview with one of the Nova survivor.
mhm,
Uh, and that's how I met Omer. He was the first survivor I met. He came to the festival like everyone to dance and celebrate and forced to confront fear of death. And
mm,
during the interview, I noticed the mud still caked under his fingernails. It was really, really
mm,
few days after October 7th.
mm.
It was the evidence of the hole he had dug to hide from the terrorists.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult for him to speak. He was frozen.
Mm,
And I remember driving back home after that shocking interview, thinking to myself that that's not the right way to do that. I don't want simply to report the horrors or the details of the horror, but I would like to try and capture their experience, what they have to deal with, to be with them, and to share that with the world in a way that is authentic and meaningful.
well,
Um,
I
yeah,
think I think you succeed very much in showing us things from the survivors' perspectives rather than necessarily inserting your own perspective. I think from my perspective anyway, you're acting as someone who's chronicling these stories, not as someone who's trying to tell a particular story, but to let them explain things as they happened and as they see them now. So I think that definitely was successful in that regard.
thank
Um,
you.
so, of the various figures, the various folks in the film, or maybe even more that you spoke with who aren't in the film, what led you to kind of center the film on Liraz?
Yeah, clear. Well, while I was searching for survivors for that French production company, I joined the Nova Party Survivors Facebook page. And
Hmm.
after that interview, I returned to that group and searching for something,
Hmm.
anything. And then I came across Liraz's post, and she was looking for people who were at the party or
Hmm.
lost loved ones and invited them to take part in her initiative.
Hmm.
And I found her idea to use this tattoo as a form of collective memory and healing
Hmm.
incredibly unique and moving. And I thought also that that might be the right setup for the film, like a safe, intimate way for the survivors to process their emotions and share their stories, almost like a therapy session.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I got
so
that.
I did, yeah, because after that shocking interview, I just realized that the location and the situation should be, it's very important because you can't just put the camera in front and expect them to share the story. I want them to feel comfortable and safe.
Mhm.
Um, so I reached out Liraz, and at the beginning she wasn't ready to share a private story with me. She was still
Mhm.
in deep pain, struggling to accept her new reality. She couldn't believe that this was now her life.
Mhm.
Um, and that exactly the story I wanted to tell, like the unbearable and profound consequences of October 7th.
Mhm.
Ironically, her initial reluctance to share a story highlighted the depth of the struggle, making her even more compelling central characters for the film.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about the ways in which, though I have not gotten any tattoos personally, I imagine the
And me
experience,
either.
yeah, I imagine the experience of having such a meaningful, whatever the symbol or the image might be, having such a meaningful thing etched on one's skin, presumably permanently, and also the pain, the physical pain that that can involve, probably brings a lot to the surface for many people, apart from those, in this case, who experience something so traumatic. So I can imagine that they would um, feel like it was an appropriate moment and venue to talk about things like that. So I wanted to. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just want to say one thing, like I think that also Liraz's story resonated deeply with me because I felt it encapsulated the complexity of survival,
Mm,
the grief, the guilt, and that fragile hidden will to find meaning again.
mhm,
So when we met each other, we just knew we had to make this film.
mm.
Yeah.
So early in the film, there's a sudden cut from the Nova Music Festival to a still image. I think it's a still. There's certainly not much going on, just of dead bodies in the street. And to me, that was maybe the most graphic or the most disturbing moment visually in the film. And I wonder, there have been a number of films now about October 7th, but for you as a filmmaker, how did you decide how much evidence of the violence to include, whether it was visual, auditory, or in descriptions given by survivors?
So the decision to use a single graphic and disturbing shot resulted from the fact that at that time we were overwhelmed with so many visuals from that day. And I wanted to leave space for the audience to imagine and to reflect and help them to connect with our characters and really be with them in the moment. Uh, because obviously they are no longer there. So before moving into the safe place of the studio and starting the story, I wanted one strong shot that would shock us and make us feel the way the world was shaking.
Mm,
And that image that we used lasts longer than you'd expected because I wanted it to feel like something you can't escape from, just like they couldn't.
mm, mhm,
And from there, my goal was, to keep us fully present with the characters. Because for me, this film isn't about describing events, it's about living and breathing alongside the characters
mm.
and trying to experiencing the reality in real time. So that led my decision to use,
Sure.
almost one single shot. Yeah,
But effectively, it remains on some level as a backdrop to everything that we're seeing. It doesn't have to be
exactly.
repeated or presented more extensively to just stay there in our minds.
Yeah, actually, we had a long argument about that because, the film that funded this film helped us a lot. They really thought that it should be that we should have more footage
Mm,
from the location. And me and the editor really insist that we want to leave that space, that, it's back there, as you said, and you can't ignore it from that point, and you just keep it with you during the film.
well, and if you overload people, especially early in a film, with images that they have trouble processing, it can shut people down and they won't be as present for the rest of what you have to show. So I would think.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
So, so far, in your experience, how have families of both hostages and victims responded to the film?
The responses have been really moving.
Mm,
Rose family told me how grateful they are because the film helped them understand him better.
mm,
Uh, they
wow.
said, yes, they said it revealed part of his character they hadn't fully known and showed how deeply loved and special he was. Yeah.
What a compliment.
Yes, yes. It's not me, but yeah, it just was
Hmm.
there. And Liraz, she actually said the film helped her to shift her focus from loss to life, which is amazing.
Mm, hmm.
She even went back to the workshop where she and Dror used to work together, something she just couldn't bring herself to do before.
Hmm.
So for many of the people in the film, it became like a mirror, showing them the beautiful thing is that it showed them their strength and resilience in the midst of all the pain. Like, because I think that, you know, before they saw themselves, they only thought about the pain and loss, and then they finally, they could see something else. Um, but I do wish I had included the hostage family in the film because I think they are such an important part of this story. But I don't think they were at that stage of commemoration. Like they were in the doing. They do whatever they can to bring them back, and
Yeah,
they don't have time, to do this kind of gestures.
yeah.
But saying that, even for them, I think that the film brought hope because they saw the courage and the resilience in the others and said that it gave them faith that their loved ones have that same strength. So,
Mm.
yeah.
So, one of the things I found the film bringing up or exploring is the way that it's very strange to experience trauma and then go on in something like regular life, but then reminders of the trauma continue coming up at unexpected moments. It's very common, right? For your present reality to be invaded by memories and things you may not even have fully remembered. To what extent, in the process of making the film or before making it, did you speak with experts or people who have studied PTSD, how trauma affects those who experience it in the whole process of making the film?
Actually, it wasn't my first film dealing with trauma, so
Mm,
I have quite solid foundation, living in Israel and the earlier film Shockwaves that I directed documented a veteran with PTSD and his family. So I knew my place. I knew that, I can't push too much and I'm here more to listen rather than to push them to act. But I also went with my instinct. For example, Liraz wasn't sure that she wanted to meet Oz. She was quite afraid.
mm,
Um, but I knew it would do good for both of them. I knew that that might be a turning point for them in the
mm,
process of healing. So in this situation, I did push her a little bit, and I suggested her, we can come with you, let's go together. And
Mm,
um, but yes, it's quite you have quite a responsibility documenting in this time of terrible pain and grief and
mhm.
trauma while it's still
Thank you.
process. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for talking about it. Um, could you speak a bit to your use of the song Stay that plays about the midpoint of the film? How did you choose it, and what did you want to express by including that song?
Yes.
Did
So
that question make sense, or
yeah. I really like that question actually.
it was very
Because
striking, the use of it, I thought.
really, do you know that song by the way?
I didn't. I looked it up though. It seems it's by an Israeli artist, yeah, Israeli
Yes,
musician, and
yes.
it just it if I remember right, it marks almost the midpoint of the film and was just a very I don't know. There's certainly, if I remember right, there's music in other parts of the film, but this is like it really stands out, and so I'm interested in what led to the use of it, or what you feel about why you chose that.
Yeah. At the beginning, we actually used it as a reference. This is something quite
Mm,
common that you do. But we kind of felt in love with the song
mm,
because we wanted to use a love song that emphasizes both strength and fragility.
mm.
Yeah, and Stay begins like a simple love song, but quickly dives into the pain and complexity that mirrors the situation
Mm,
in the film. So we just felt it's a perfect match, and
mm.
we decided to. Um, we just knew it had to stay, like the name of the song, so it stayed there.
Very, very good. Okay. Um, let's see. So this might be of interest to some viewers of the film, particularly who are Jewish. Um, I recognize that in Israeli society, there are many Israelis who don't live by or observe sort of traditional Jewish ideas of what to do or what not to do. Tattoos traditionally are not allowed, right? In traditional Judaism, it's my understanding. But obviously, in this film, they are a very profound expression of a number of things, memory and loss. I wonder, did you have any hesitation, or has there been any pushback about the depiction, so matter-of-factly, of Jewish Israelis getting tattoos? Does that make, because I don't know if you were raised to think that tattoos weren't okay. Here in America, a lot of Jews also have tattoos, but traditionally that's not allowed, right? It's an interesting
Yeah.
tension. So I wanted to see if you could speak to that at all.
So, yes, while traditional Jews law discourages tattoo, they are becoming more common in Israel, especially
Mm,
among young secular people, of course.
hmm
But in the context of the film, like the tattoo became symbol of shared experiences and dealing,
mm.
transcending traditional boundaries. By the way, it became very common after October 7th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot of people um, that usually don't go to, to make a tattoo did, meaningful, something
Mm.
that related, of course. Um, but also, I think there is also an unspoken connection to the Holocaust. Like, I
Yes.
believe this historical echo adds a layer of complexity and emotional depth, especially in the context of the film's title, like Tattoo for Life,
Mm, mhm.
because this title reflects this dual meaning, symbolizing both the lasting bonds and the permanent scars, physical and emotional, of course, tied to
Mm.
the Jewish history.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned the echo of tattoos with their significance in terms of the Holocaust. I have heard it said by some people who are Jewish and have tattoos that they feel it's a reclaiming because in that case, these tattoos were imposed on people in a terrible situation. And in this case, they're choosing something meaningful to them, and no one is making them do this. This is their freedom that it's expressing. So I feel like that's what I've
Yeah.
also heard people say here in America, which is interesting. To me, it's a fascinating topic. But all right, so this is something that I thought about, particularly because not long, maybe months after uh, October 7th, I began to see news of films, whether originally documentary films, mostly they've been documentary films, that were already dealing with what happened October 7th. It was very soon. And, some people, rightly or wrongly, have compared the US 9/11 attacks many years ago to October 7th. I think that's not it's a very imperfect comparison. But one thing that happened in the US was in the years after 9/11, when filmmakers considered whether to make some kind of film about it, it was considered too soon. People weren't ready. One film did come out, and at a theater, apparently, when the trailer was on the screen, people threw their drinks at the screen. They were so upset. It was too soon. I'm wondering how you knew that it wasn't too soon, that it was okay to do this, that it was time.
So for me, it started from the need to take action, and this was
Hmm.
my way of taking action.
Yeah.
Believe me, I tried other ways before that, like volunteering to cook and buying supplies, but I realized this is how I can uh, contribute best. I'm a terrible baker. So, while perspective is often essential in documentary filmmaking, sometimes you simply can't afford to wait. In
Mm.
this case, I felt we didn't have the privilege to wait, and we must capture the moment as it unfolded. Some might say, yes, it's too soon. I would say either it's too soon.
Mm.
But I believe that storytelling can sometimes support the healing process rather than hold
Mm.
it back. Would I do it differently now? Probably, yes. But I don't think it would result a better film. I think there is
Also true, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I just want to say that there is something almost pure. I don't know if it's the right phrase to say, but it's not political or critical. And
Mm.
that I deeply value this thing about this film, because if I would do it now, I probably had, um, something to add to this
Mhm.
situation. It's not that my point of view is not exist in the film, of course,
Right.
I'm there, but it's something different. Even all the documentary process of this film was different from my other
Mhm.
work. Um, my directing instinct was really clear and sharp in this project because I had to be very sensitive and I don't know, I just felt everything deeply inside of me. Like I didn't have a lot of doubt, and like I usually have while editing, everything felt
Mm.
right. Like it was like a puzzle. Each thing, went to the right place. Um, there was something even not easy, it's not the right word to use, but just felt so natural, so
Mm.
authentic to make this film in that specific point of time.
At any point, did you consider making it a feature, a longer film?
I did think about that, but there was something that I really loved in the way it was capsulated. Like,
Mm.
as we said before, it wasn't too much to bear.
Mm. Yeah.
If you understand what I'm saying, like, of course,
Mm.
I could follow Liraz after, and of course, I could interview more people and document more, but something in that particularly amount felt
Mhm.
right for me.
Mm,
So, and I'm not usually making a short documentary. Usually I direct like 50 to 70 minutes film, but that
mhm,
film felt,
mm.
yeah, right as it is.
Well, you alluded earlier to, I think you said the film, was it Shockwaves that you had directed previously?
Shockwaves, yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you had depicted or dealt with the themes of trauma before. I'm wondering, in what ways was this project different from previous films you've worked on? And are there other themes that kind of run through the films that you've made that you also see in this film? Does that make sense? Like, in what ways was this project different from what you've done before? And in what ways are there some through lines you can see?
So as I said before, like this project was uniquely immediate and raw,
Mm,
and unlike previous films that allow to extend reflection,
mm,
this one demand quick action.
mm,
Um, so in that way, it was very different for me because usually it's a long process,
mm,
sometimes quite difficult. um, because there were no endless doubt as I used to have while making a documentary. Here I really felt it strong, as I said. But I think that, like I said before, like my other films also deals with trauma and struggle. But if I can find something common to the other themes, I think it's the hope. Um, it was obvious for me that even it was so difficult then to see um, a slight hope. I just wanted to, I felt that I must find it.
mm,
Um, so maybe this is something that I just usually feel it's part of my work
mhm,
to find something positive. Because I think that, even here, all these scars and
mm.
experiences that we are having in our life is part of who we are, and it makes us the people we are.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
Um, well, just a few more things, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Um, First of all, how did you select the survivors whose stories you included? I'm sure there were many whom you either could have contacted or did contact, but you center the film on, well, I don't know if it's a half dozen or 6 to 8 people, I think we see. How did you choose them to be the subjects of your film?
So the selection process was quite organic. It
Mm,
involved first tentative finding the individual who were willing to share their stories and make the tattoo.
mhm,
Um, at the beginning, we filmed at the rehabilitation center that's set up by the Nova production team, where
mhm,
Iraz had created their first mobile studio to offer the tattoo.
mm,
But the atmosphere there felt very crowded and hectic.
mm. Yeah.
So we decided to change the location and film the main film at the main tattoo session in the studio.
Mhm.
Um, and actually, everyone we filmed that day became part of the film.
Mm.
Uh,
Wow.
yeah, yes,
Mm,
I just couldn't left anybody out of the film. They all came from the post that Liraz shared on Facebook,
mhm,
except I have to confess, except for the two women that I
mm,
personally invited. I
mhm,
saw them in another testimony during other volunteer work I was doing. And I hope meeting them would ignite something in Liraz. Uh,
Mm,
because these women were close friends who separated during the party,
yeah,
much like Liraz and their partner Dror.
yeah.
So I hope that if Liraz would meet them, so she would realize that it wasn't her fault, uh,
Mm,
leaving Dror under the stage, and that if he had survived, they would probably remain close friends.
mm,
So yes, that meeting
mm,
brought Liraz to tears, as you could see
yeah.
in the film, but also it encouraged her to share her story and process her deep loss.
Mhm. Mm, wow.
Yeah.
Appreciate your talking about that. I think that that is a crucial moment in the film, and it's good to hear sort of how you came to that. Let's see. Well, what I don't know how many festivals the film has been shown at so far, but to the extent that it has, or that you've been able to see audiences respond, what would you say the responses have been like?
The audience responses has been deeply moving
Mm,
in Israel and abroad.
mhm,
It was incredible to see how this screening brought everyone into the story.
mm,
From, I had so many different people in the audience. We screened it in universities and film
mm,
festivals and high schools and really in lots of places. And everyone from a doctor who had never heard about a party like that to the most cynical teenager in the class, everyone were, there was like kind of a collective silence during the film,
mm,
and it was striking. And the reaction afterwards were even more powerful. One unforgettable moment came right after the premiere.
mm,
A young man stood up and said, everyone must see this film, like everyone. In Israel, it can help begin a healing process for our wounded community, and globally, people must see they are just ordinary people who simply wanted to love and be loved. And this comment perfectly capture what I hope the film would achieve.
yeah.
Um, I only wish the film could reach more international audience, not
Mm,
just Jewish or Israeli communities,
mhm,
because I think it's important for people worldwide to expose to the story and its a universal message of humanity and resilience.
mm,
Um, but we are still showing it around the world, and hopefully it will be screened worldwide. So we'll see. We'll see how
yeah,
it develops from here.
I hope so too. Well, if you don't mind talking about it, what is next for you as a filmmaker? If you are able to tell us a little about anything you're working on now.
Yeah. So I aim to continue telling stories that matter, stories that explore the human. Oh, where are you?
I don't know where I went. Well, can you can you hear me or no?
No, only a picture of you. There you
Only
are.
a picture. Okay, well, I can I can still hear you.
Uh, okay. So I'm currently working on two projects. The first is called The Glass Children. It tells the
Mm,
story of the first generation diagnosed with autism in Israel, uh,
mm,
documenting their incredible journey from childhood to old age.
mm,
And the second one focus on a young girl navigating the challenges of an eating disorder.
mm.
Oh, yes. I often tell stories about struggles, as I said before, but they always carry a strong message of hope. So, yeah.
So, uh, are you able to hear me or no?
Yeah, I can hear you and see you right
And see
now.
me. Wonderful. Okay. Well, I only had one more thing to ask, which is there anything we haven't touched on that you think is important to note about the film, um, how it fits into your work, anything like that? Just anything we haven't touched on that you'd like to mention?
Um, Maybe the importance of community and
Mm,
connection in time of crisis. I think Israelis have a unique way of coming together during hardship, and this spirit of unity and resilience is something I hope the film conveys.
mm,
It's not just a story of loss, it's a story of hope and strength and the will to rebuild.
mm,
That said, it's not always easy to see this. There are days when I wake up feeling hopeless,
mm,
angry, and disappointed. But then, out of nowhere, I came across a post, a story, or an act by an ordinary person doing something extraordinary, and it fills me with renewed hope. So, I think that we must not lose hope, mainly for the return of all of our hostages and the ending of the war. And I wish them to be back home
mm. Well,
really, really soon.
yeah. Kineret, I want to thank you so much for making the time in what is, I know, the evening for you, and for talking about your film. We're really honored to be showing it, and I look forward to telling you, how it goes over with folks here. So,
Please do. Please let me know how was
yeah,
the screening and the reaction. And thank you so much for having me
of
and
course.
choosing to show the film. It's really important. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you a lot.